A pleasant day to all our viewers, especially to Ma'am Cindy Hotohot, Sir Vincent and Festo, and to all SH214 students. Today, we will talk about the results and interpretation of the data analysis about the title, The Emotional Intelligence of the Students and Effective Leadership Practices. I am Jero Shalom A. Manuel,
Joel Daniel G. Darunday,
Alvin D. Angko Jr.
Altayan Niles Tahor.
and we are
the
Group 9. So now, let me share my screen. Once again, good day to everyone. We will discuss about the data analysis of the given data about the title, The Emotional Intelligence of the Students and Effective Leadership Practices, and prove its relationship to each other. Then there would be two variables. There are 10 questions on the questionnaire, and it is divided into two. Questions 1 to 5 represents the first variable, and the question 6 to 10 represents the second variable. This data has total of 50 respondents. Part of the data analysis is the frequency of the demographic profile, mean and standard deviation, Cronbach alpha value, person R, and the ANOVA. Before we get started, let us define the two variables. First variable is the emotional intelligence, and the second variable is the effective leadership. And now, the question is, what is emotional intelligence? Otherwise known as emotional quotient or EQ, is the ability to understand, use, and manage your own emotions in positive ways to relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict. Now, what is effective leadership? Effective leadership brings together diverse people and helps them find common purpose and work toward to achieve purposeful common goals. Effective leadership inspires and empowers people to realize their fullest potential and harness their potentials to achieve common goals. This time, let us proceed to the frequencies of the demographic profile. We get the four profile of each student, which is the age, strand, sex, and grade level. Now, let us proceed in the demographic profile in terms of age. The figure shows the number of senior high school students in the University of Mindanao in terms of age level. It shows the distribution of the respondents by age level. It can be reflected that most of the respondents are 17 years old students that have a total number of 18, while the 16 years old respondents have a total of 17, and lastly, followed are the 18 years old respondents that have a total of 15. Next term is the strand. So here we can see a pie chart. It shows the number of senior high school students in the University of Mindanao in terms of strands. It shows the distribution of respondents by strands. Of course, it can be gleaned that most of the respondents are from the ABM and STEM strands. Respondents that have a total number of 18 or 36%. By the UMS strands, respondents that have a total of 14 respondents or 28%. So a pie chart that displays the frequency of a strand term. Next one is the demographic profile about in terms of sex. So here we can see a pie chart. It shows the distribution of respondents by sex. It can be reflected that most of the respondents are male respondents that have 27 or 54%, while the female respondents have a total of 23 or 46%. This shows the frequency and percent of the sex term. Last one for the demographic profile is the grade level. It shows the distribution of respondents by year level. It can be gleaned that most of the respondents are from the grade 12 respondents that have a total of 27, followed by the grade 11 respondents that have a total of 23 respondents. And that's all for frequencies of demographic profile. This time, let us proceed to the mean, standard deviation, Cronbach alpha value, and Pearson R. I give the floor to Mr. Darunday.
This is Roel, and I will discuss the mean, standard deviation, Cronbach alpha value, and Pearson R. So first is the mean and standard deviation. Mean, the variables, intelligence, and effect. The table above is the variable emotional intelligence is 4.32. As for the effective leadership, the mean is 4.43. Hence, the mean of the first variable is lesser than the second variable. Next is the standard deviation. The aforementioned is the standard deviation of the emotional intelligence and effective leadership. The standard deviation of emotional intelligence while 0.36 in effective leadership. Thus, the standard deviation of the first variable is greater than the second variable. Next slide is Cronbach alpha value. Based on Lee-Cronbach's alpha value table, the Cronbach's alpha of acceptable fluctuate between 0.6 to 0. Hence, the result of data shown above was 0.681. Therefore, our study was acceptable. Next slide is Pearson R. There are R value and P value. Since the R value is positive, then the results show a direct relationship or positive relationship between the two variables, which are the emotion and effective leadership. And since the result shows a positive relationship in which the dependent variable also increases or vice versa, emotional the effective leadership increases or vice versa. Lastly, p-value. For the p-value, it was said that we could be able to reject the null hypothesis if the value shows a less than 0.5. And since our p-value is 0.00, then we are going to reject the null hypothesis. Thus, the efficient relationship between and effective leadership. So now, I will give the floor to Mr. Angko to discuss the ANOVA.
Thank you. And hello, my name is Alvin Nangko. And now I'm gonna discuss about the ANOVA of our data analysis. First of all, ANOVA is the short term of analysis of variance, and it is used to analyze the differences bins. And it also helps you to evaluate or two variables with three groups. These are and variable. The three groups included 16, 17, and 18 ages. And the three groups included in the strand variable were M, A, B. The next slide conducted the ANOVA of our two variables. We analyzed each level and compared the means into one-way ANOVA. Then we have first variable for the dependent list. And we also selected the age section for the factor. To get back to talk and to result, and the statistics should be descriptive. As you can see, the result is given from this table. Since the significance of variable is 0.527, value is also 0.527. The required value for a significant value must be equal to 0. Since the p-value in the age group is 7, it is not equal to 0.05. Hence, there is no for age variable. For the next slide, which is the strand variable, tested what we about. We analyzed and compared the means into one-way ANOVA and choose the strand group for the factor. We went back to the post hoc and selected the two key get the result along with the descriptive statistics. As you can see, the result is shown from this table. Since the significance of the strand variable is 0.309, therefore value so 0.309, and the required value for a significant value is equal to 0.05 or less. So there is also no significant value for the strand variable. Hence, both variables are no significant value ANOVA of this data analysis. And I'll give the floor for Mr. Gilbert for more discussion.
Thank you. To further discuss our results and interpretation of data, analysis supports the study conducted by GLA Stratum entitled The Relationship Among Emotional Intelligence, Leadership Practices, and Leadership Act in First Year College Stratum 2011. This study aims to investigate if a relationship exists between emotional intelligence and leadership in college students. This study focuses on students who are leaders or enrolled in leadership program. This study is related to our given research because it focuses on students who practices leadership skills and the emotional intelligence. Now let us compare some results from the data analysis of their study and our data analysis.
Thank you, Mr. Torres. To further discuss, their study shows that emotional intelligence was related to leadership practices. P is equals to 0.61, P less than 0.01. The multiple regression analysis in the correlation matrix indicated a relationship between emotional intelligence and leadership practices. Furthermore, it hypothesized that each leadership practice subskill would correlate positively with emotional intelligence. Thus, they analyzed the leadership practices subskills to see if there was a relationship between emotional intelligence and the subskills. Our results show that emotional intelligence was related to leadership practices. P is equals to 0.519 and P is less than 0.000, which means a significant relationship between emotional intelligence and leadership practices. Hence, both of the data analysis shows relationship between emotional intelligence and effective leadership. And now, I give the floor to Miss Tahor.
Okay, Mr. Manuel. And now, is to you the mean and standard deviation of the related study. If the score has a mean score of 3.97 according to the finding sheet, on the other hand, has a mean of 3, indicating the emotional intelligence is more essential than successful leadership. In the next slide, the standard deviation, emotional intelligence has a standard deviation of 0.35, the effectiveship of 0.40, indicating that emotional intelligence is less than effective than leadership. And effective leadership have standard deviation of 0.47121 and 0.35768, respectively, indicating that emotional intelligence is more important than effective leadership. And we give the floor for Mr. Manuel.
Okay. And that brings us to the end. I want to thank Ma'am Cindy, Sir Infesto, and to all SHS 214 STEM students, and of course, my beautiful and handsome group mates. Thank you for your cooperation, guys, and for your effort. And to the viewers, I'd like to express my gratitude and thank you for your time and attention today. That's all for our data analysis presentation about the title, The Emotional Intelligence of the Students and Effective Leadership Practices. Leaving you a quote, "The goal is to turn data into information and information to insight." Once again, I am Jero Shalom, Emmanuel,
Ruel Dinyaji,
Alvin Dianco Jr.
Althea Nels Tahor.
And Gilbert S. Torres.
and we
And
are
we are
We are the
the
group
Group
9.
9.